Journal Entry 5. When I think of the words best friends, the first image that pops in my mind is Nick, Linda, and Linda's brother Ernie. However, they do have another brother named Pike, but much like my sister Kelly, he is never around. But I considered Pike my favorite cousin. But anyhow, it was mainly just Nick, Linda, and Ernie. They were the three musketeers. They were inseparable, that is, until Nick got locked up a few years back. Yes, he went to prison for 2 years, the crime carjacking and police evasion. And while in jail, he had to learn to adapt to survive. Yes, it was rough, but what really bothered him was that nobody wrote him a letter or visited. And when he called Mom, he complained about it. He inadvertently exposed his heart for all to see. He was both sad and mad. But all that changed one afternoon when Linda appeared out of nowhere. And the moment his name got called that he had a visitor, he finally felt at ease that somebody cared. And just like that, Linda had stolen his heart. And to her, I was no longer his sister. She made that perfectly clear when Nick was released. She went around introducing him as her brother, but when people asked who I was, she simply replied, "A nobody." And after that remark, I knew deep in my heart she was going to be a lifelong enemy. It was actually a shame, simply because that same heart wanted to love her. Journal Entry 6. From what I heard, Aunt Helen wasn't always so resentful toward my mom. They used to be thick as thieves, club hopping, laughing over a few beers, the kind of sisters who finished each other's sentences. Party animals, the life of every gathering. Helen loved my mom so much, she named her daughter after her. My mom's name is Linda, my cousins named are Linda, but for some reason she prefers to be called Linda too. Not sure why though. But anyhow, my mom and her sister even had the same laugh that turned heads. Close? They were more than close. They truly loved each other. But something dark must have happened. A fight? A secret? No one talks about it. When I ask, I'm prying or stirring trouble. Once Grandma heard I was asking questions, suddenly I was the problem. By that time I was labeled crazy and now a problem. Linda was always crafty, but she had help. Aunt Helen made sure to stay in Grandma's good graces, even if it meant throwing me and my siblings under the bus. Secret whispers and silent agreements were everywhere. I remember the coat. More specifically, a black leather coat, the kind that creaks when you move, that Grandma bought just for Linda. I remember when I was 13 years old, when one evening Mom dropped me off at Aunt Helen's house. Date night, she said, stay out of trouble. Of course, I had every intention to, and while Mom was gone, I flipped through television channels, bored. Then, suddenly, Helen and Linda disappeared into the next room, then moments later reappeared holding a coat. Try it on, Linda said, grinning. I hesitated. Linda's stuff was always off limits, but she insisted and pushed it into my hands. And once I slipped it on, the leather was cool against my skin, the sleeves a little long, but it felt good. They both stepped back, in surprise, eyes sparkling. You look so pretty, Helen said, like it was a revelation. Linda nodded in agreement. Pretty, she echoed. Then they left me there, the coat swallowing my frame, but I took note that it was the first time either of them had called me pretty. It was the first time I felt seen. Hours later, Mom came to pick me up. I was still wearing the coat, too cozy to take it off. And by the time I made it to the car, Helen and Linda were waving from the doorway. However, once we got home, we could hear the phone ringing from the outside. That's when Mom rushed in the house, but her face grew pale once she answered. Apparently, Linda was shouting through the phone that I had stolen the coat. And after a few minutes had passed, with them shouting at each other, Mom hung up the phone and glared at me. Take it off, she snapped, so I did, but I was confused. And without saying a word, she grabbed the coat and rushed out the door to return it. At that point, I was left both heartbroken and confused that now the word thief was being added to my growing list of labels. And there was no doubt in my mind that Linda was already on the phone with Grandma,